All right, hey brand babies, this is your ghetto country grandmother, and I am here with Chris Doe, one of my favorite people in the world, and I learned so much from him. Even if I don't take all his advice, the fact that he gives it so freely and so like damn near succinctly, it just feeds my soul because I hate when people beat around the bush and just do all the bullshit. It's like just tell me, and let me do my thing. And Chris is that person for me. Is I've been following him since I saw the beer thing that they did on their YouTube, and got into the pro group after what was it, being on Clubhouse. And so there's just all these different things. Dude just sucked me in. I'm sorry. I tell folks I'm a cult member because they tease about being in the cult. I own the fact that I am in a fucking cult because the pro group and Chris is just been an amazing experience for me and a growing experience. Somebody was saying on LinkedIn that they love how I'm blossoming. I'm like, baby, I'm a bamboo. I was doing shit underground for the last 5 years. I'm good. I'm good. But let me go ahead and let Chris introduce himself, tell us what he wants us to know. Because most of y'all already know him. Folks that follow me know him. But anyway, come on, Chris. Tell me who you are, what you do, and all the good stuff.
Thank you so much, Phyllis. Those are very kind words, and it warms my soul to hear it. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Doe. I'm a loud introvert, recovering graphic designer, serial entrepreneur. And today I describe myself as a hybrid entrepreneur. I speak the language of business and design, and I have this really big mission, which is to teach a billion people how to make a living doing what they love.
Yes. And for you guys that don't know, I gave Chris a different 2 word brand. I said he should be Doughboy. And it's not the Doughboy that you see from Boys in the Hood, but it's because of that whole thing, getting people to do what they love and make money at it. I have a similar mission, but I don't put it in that frame of reference. And I think it should be a thing. Everybody wasn't meant to have a job in that respect, but dude is straight Doughboy. He is all about the money, but it's not from a place of greed, and that's what I have real respect for. There are a lot of people out here trying to snatch up all the coin and the quan and all of that kind of stuff because they want to be, you know what, I want to have this luxury lifestyle. Y'all got $5, the beer tasting the champagne tasting beer money. Yeah. But I respect the game on that. But what Chris and I are talking about today is our different perspectives and even some of our alignment around personal branding. Now, Chris just told you that he's a loud introvert and that's his thing. And like I said, I would have called him Doughboy because it's all about the money. But it's with the understanding of the power of a personal brand, especially with like the crowd that he attracts. A lot of these people, oh, I want to be Chris Doe, not knowing that there's only one Chris Doe, but then also not knowing that there's something unique about you that you can bring to the game as far as your personal brand. And you have to be your loudest advocate when you're starting out. And if you don't know how to do that, if you can't do it under your name, I don't do it under my name because I believe in, like church and state. I separate my shit. So that's why my personal brand is the ghetto country grandmother. And so, like I said, I want to have this conversation with him with the understanding that, you know what, we approach it differently, but we want the same things for the folks that we work with. We want you guys to get paid. And if you're not being loud enough, or if you're not having the right numbers, or you're not charging enough, sweetie, something's wrong. Something's wrong. So, Chris, tell me, like when you, because I know we've seen the personal branding when you were doing it in the pro group. Why did you decide to do that whole thing in this tour you're about to do now?
Good question. Thank you. I'm a latecomer to this idea of branding and personal brand. I just want to put that out there because I always thought that the best way I can serve my client and the best way I can build my company is to kind of be invisible and all this stuff. So for my first company called Blind, I played a very minimal role in terms of like my presence. I always wanted to support my directors and creative directors to put the spotlight on them. And we went like this for 2 decades and it worked just fine. And there were some reasons why I want to do that. And I want to explain in case people are like, yeah, I hear you. That's what I'm doing too. And then why the transition might make sense to you then. If you are forefront, if it's called Chris Doe and Associates or Chris Doe Agency or the Doe and Doe, whatever it is, then that means that every time you don't get me, you feel like you're getting less. Yes. And I don't want to be the person doing all the calls with the clients. I don't want to be so tied to my company I can't walk away from it and not feel like something bad is happening. That's why we picked a name called Blind and why we hired people and we promoted and pushed them as hard as we could, the PR, all that stuff. So a lot of creative directors or owners of agencies will put their name on every single project. My name is somewhere buried tiny down there, deep, deep down there, because you know what? I don't feel great about taking credit for things I didn't actually work on. But to each their own. If you do that, no problem. I'm not here to judge you. You do what works for you.
Yeah.
So for a long time, we're just kind of working in relative anonymity. We're like every other company out there. We talk about we do cutting edge solutions for brands and blah, blah, blah. Super boring stuff. And then whenever I went to write a piece of thought leadership, which is to share my thoughts and opinions about the industry, I felt hamstrung in that I couldn't do these things because I'm not speaking for all my team. They're much more genteel than I am. They're not as opinionated. And here I am, and I can't do this because I'm speaking for all of us. And I found the writing to be dull, uninspired, and very much like a press release. It wasn't until I broke away and started the future where I was starting all over again, where it's just me and a very young person as my assistant. Well, I felt I'm going to start writing now. I have no one else to please, no one else to make sure that we all get along. So it's just my opinion. And so I didn't even write in the we. You know how we're told to write we. We believe this.
Yes.
We stand for these ideas. I just wrote I because there's no we. It's just I. I'm writing it.
For
And
real.
people called me out on it. People called me out on it. They're like,
Yeah.
hey, shouldn't you write we? Isn't this a whole team thing? I said, when there's a we and we are writing, then we will write in the we. But right now, I write in the me and the I. And if you're not okay with that, God bless, be on your way.
Be on your merry way.
Be on your merry way. And so here's what happened. The differences, as you can imagine, were night and day in terms of engagement and connection and building a community around this. So if you look at the statistics, Blind as a Facebook page back when, Facebook was popping, might have had 30 or 40,000 followers because we did good work. We did world-class work. But as soon as I started writing in the I as part of the future, we catapulted to 60, 80,000, then 100,000 followers within a very short period of time. Wow. Writing did not become a chore. I felt good. I felt compelled and inspired to write versus like a client came to us with a specific problem. We solved it and Bob's your uncle. Right? I get to write from my heart. So if I'm fired up about something, if I have an opinion about something, I'm going to write from that place. And to my surprise and to my delight, people start showing up for that. Like, well, finally somebody said it.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to speak truth. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And of course, you turn off a lot of people and I'm okay. So then I now enter into a new phase in my life and my career where you get your fans and you get your critics. Yeah. And they're both pretty strong in terms of how they express themselves.
I get it. And I'm so there with you because like one of the reasons I'm so adamant about a personal brand as far as like the Ghetto Country Grandmother is when I had my previous business, when we had the food business, I was Mrs. Mister. I was Mrs. Mister to Neil's Big Mister. And because we were so close with our customers and whatnot, and we would be in the same community, they thought that they could walk up to me any fucking time and talk about barbecue. It's like, do I look like I'm in a barbecue frame of mind? Come on now. It just got really annoying, but we loved on our people. Like I say, when we ended up we went to a punk rock concert. Me and Neil, two black fat people, and all this sea of white boys with they punk and they jumping and all that kind of stuff. So we supported them. And so there was this level of love and connection with our folks that, you know what, I'm cool with this. But I was not cool when there were times where I was just trying to be Phyllis. And people infringed on that with barbecue. And so now when I talk to people and I tell them, okay, I know where Ghetto Country Grandmother ends and where Phyllis begins. Because if you cross over this, I can tell you, know what, back up. This is not ghetto, this is not my vibe over here. Or even when I'm out and I'm doing something, oh, I recognize you, you're Ghetto Country Grandmother. No, right now I'm Phyllis. I'm Morgan's mom. I'm Neil's wife. I'm somebody's cousin, auntie, friend, whatever. Or I'm just Phyllis because I'm sitting here trying to enjoy my coffee. And so for me, it helps to create the boundaries of how far I will go and how far I will allow people to engage with me to a certain extent. Because if you're trying to ask me, well, can I ask you a branding question? Do you see me sitting here looking like I'm branding right now? No. So that's why the whole thing about having that moniker for myself. But because based on like when you did the whole 2-word brand thing, I came up with the 2-word brand of empathic bitch. And I own that because I know I am very empathetic, but I have to stop it at some point. And when I do, that's when people think I'm being a bitch. So you know what? Let me own both of them. I can be empathic and I can be that person.
Yep.
So it's when I see people, when watching people try and figure out how far they want to go with their personal brand is damn near painful for me because they do so much extra, even in all the hyphenations. I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. And it's like, sweetie, what does this have to do with what results you provide? It's like, even when you say you're a loud introvert, you're out here talking all the time about the things that you want to do to create the 1 billion people to get paid for doing what they love. So it's in alignment with that. But it's like, for you to tell me that I'm the mom of four, I'm a poet, and you're all these things before you get to the fact that, you know what, but I'm also a coach. Why did I need all the headlines before? Can we figure out how to make this part of what it is that you do? So when you talk about personal branding, and I'm sure you talk about it outside of the pro group, how does the conversation go?
The first part is, what is a brand?
Mm-hmm.
Because people don't know. What is a personal brand? And then, does it matter? So we usually bring people in from the cold and warm them up a little bit, invite them to sit next to the brand campfire, and we have a conversation about this. So
That's a
most
brand
people
campaign.
have a negative feeling about a personal brand. Watch where it goes. This is like the telephone game. Personal brand, you mean like an influencer, like those YouTube creators, like those people who dance and shake their butt? I don't want any association with that at all, because it's like this vapid form of attention seeking,
Yes.
not attention sharing. It's a very different concept. So, just like with anything, if there are a few loud people who get all the attention disproportionately, and they represent an idea or philosophy that you don't align with, oftentimes what people do is they throw an entire concept out and they don't think that there's nuance to this game. But
Yes.
if I ask you, who are the people that you look up to the most? Authors, philosophers, teachers, maybe religious folk, whoever it is, they are old school influencers before that word was used in the current lexicon that it's used today. They share ideas. They're deeply spiritual. They're thoughtful. They could be shaman, gurus, sages, oracles. They're the people who collected the wisdom of the tribe and they shared it. And they shared it to help you. And so when I think of what we can do in the 21st century, it's quite wonderful. The opportunity that exists for us, for those who want it, because this is not
Yes.
for everybody. There are
No.
8 billion people on earth. They're not all meant to be content creators. They're not all meant to have a personal brand or to be an author, an influencer. There's always that mix of people who are going to lead and the people who want to support them and want to be led. And it works really well. So if you are sitting in the audience listening to this or watching this video at some point, and you say, like, I want to step into that space. I want to serve other people. I want to be a great servant leader. Then you have to start thinking about, what do I need to do to put myself in a position where people are going to see me in that light so that I can help them. Not because I want to be famous, not because I want to be rich, but because in order for me to make impact on people's lives, I have to be able to attract people and become a key person of influence. The old school way to do this, write a book and hope that it becomes a best-selling book. So you're transmitting your thoughts through the written form and distributed through different traditional channels where people can read your thoughts and feel connected to you. Well, the challenges around that is you probably need a literary agent. You need a publisher who's going to put out the book. You need some luck, some PR, and some marketing, and to write the right topic at the right time and hit that perfect point. Great. That's how it's been done for a really long time. But
Mm-hmm.
now with the advent of social platforms and ability to connect with anyone everywhere asynchronously all at the same time, you don't have to jump through hoops through all the gatekeepers. You don't need a literary agent. You don't need a publisher to say, yes, we'll do the deal. You don't need a Barnes and Noble to say, yes, we'll accept the book and we'll push it and promote it. We don't need the news agents and the literary critics to say that it's good. Now we have a direct connection to the person, the audience, the consumer, to the student, to the mentee that we've always wanted. So now we have to learn to play a different game. We have to acquire even more skills than we had before.
And you know, it's interesting that you say that, because people think, from what I see, people are thinking that, oh, I can just, if I put it out there, I'm being seen. But they don't take into account, are you being seen by the right people? And like I said, for me to come out as Phyllis, no, that's too much anxiety and crazy over there. I know her. But to come out as a ghetto country grandmother based on what I know and what I do well is a whole different vibe. And so when people talk about, well, I did the lead magnet and I did the social media post and all, but sweetie, was the message on point? Was the positioning right? Were you even fucking interesting? Do you even know if people want what you have? Because if you package it incorrectly, even it could be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But if you package it wrong in the message that you put out and how you put it, no one will ever know. Because you're afraid to say that I take a stand for this. And I tell people all the time, I do not believe in the concept you are your brand. A brand is too much weight on one person, especially when we're out here calling them freelancers and side hustles and all of this kind of stuff. Sweetie, if you're going to be a business, be a fucking business. Take the side hustle and freelance off of it. I don't care if you're on Fiverr and Upwork, but if you're going to do this thing and you talk about how do I get more leads, I haven't heard you say shit. What are you trying to lead them to? And it's excuse me, it's when they hear the loudest crickets that they get discouraged. But the thing that I see the most of, and this is from the Future Pro Group all out to LinkedIn to all the other platforms that I'm on, you're asking for leads. You're constantly asking people like Chris and other people who have made a name for themselves, how do I get more leads? Sweetie, say something. You haven't said shit. You haven't put out anything. Well, I do, what is it? I do email marketing. Okay, are you marketing to the right people? And you're so focused on who's the ideal client, you don't even know who your target audience is and don't know the difference between the two, because your ideal client is actually in the target audience. At least that's what I believe. And so when we're talking about personal branding, um, I don't want to say her name because someone sent me a message when I posted about this on LinkedIn, but they sent me a message and they said, this, my two-word brand is this. And it was their name. But sweetie, it's something that people are going to forget. Like I say, I think people remember you more for your presence than they do for you being Chris Doe. It's like dude shows up and it's like he is all the things. It just so happens that his name is Chris Doe. And you've already had this circle of influence and so forth. So it's easier for you to use your name. But when you Joe Blow coming off the street and you're trying to start something and you're some other Chris, like Chris who? No one knows you and you're not making the right noise. And I believe that with a personal brand that has some sort of moniker to it, it helps you to branch out. When I started owning the Ghetto Country Grandmother, I was trying to fit it into my old company name, which was CKO Creator. That shit was not working at all. I did not talk about CKO Creator. I did not promote it. It was just a website, go there and do something. It wasn't until I finally said, you know what, let it go. When I stepped away from it that Grandma's House emerged. And we got to talk to Sam Horn, and she's like, why would you call it anything else? But owning that thing about Grandma's House and then calling all my clients, those are my brand babies. I have someone who has never worked with me. He says, this is your grandson. I didn't tell him to call himself my grandson, but he said, I'm the grandson. I said, okay. He said, nobody else gets to own that. He owns that for himself because he knows me. And that is the thing when we talk about the whole super van and tribes and all that kind of stuff. This is someone who has not worked with me that's still owning the fact that he's a grandson. And that is that kind of thing and it's that kind of magic that you hope for. I don't care if he doesn't spend with me. The fact that he believes in what I'm saying enough to call himself a grandson means more to me than that. So I see you taking notes, Chris, because I love that Chris is always taking notes about shit. I don't care who he talking to. He is always taking notes. Tell me what's going on in your head.
Well, I wanted to respond to this concept that my name is my two-word brand. Okay, maybe. I don't want to dismiss that outright.
Okay.
Now, I think it is a Black culture. It's a tradition or a thing in Black culture to give your children some really unique names. And if you have a really unique name, yes, you can own it. But if you're John Smith, that's very hard to own because it's like 10,000 other people have the exact same name. And it becomes very problematic. If you're Beyonce, if you're Denzel, if you're Kobe, if you're LeBron, you could just use that. And you have to be now world famous with talent given to you by God or your mama.
Yeah.
And so what we don't want to do is to risk everything on us being that good. where
Yeah.
there's one of you in the entire world who performs at the highest level. You can say the name Michael, and you can probably think of 5 very famous Michaels, and you're probably not one of them. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Jackson, Tyson, Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
they can just be known by their first name because they're so good. Here's the number 2. Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this. He says a basketball, to me, is not worth a lot. I love basketball. And actually, it's actually worth negative amount of money to me because I've torn 2 Achilles heel or I've blown out a knee, he says, right? But to LeBron James, a basketball is $1 billion tool.
Wow.
So what we don't want to do is we don't want to say, like, because I'm going through the motions of what people tell me to do,
Mm-hmm.
and when it doesn't work, that the idea is bad. It could be, dare I say it, maybe you're not executing it well.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's working for some people and it's
Mm-hmm.
not working for others. And why is that? Are we saying that the basketball is not a good tool? Well, it depends on who you talk to. So just look at it like that. So, I had a conversation with somebody online
Mm-hmm.
and they went in for an interview and they're like, oh, I always interview well. I'm on my 5th interview. My work is good. They always compliment me. And then I don't get the work. Why is that, Chris? Why don't I get the work? And their only explanation is it was obviously racism. Now you're going to laugh at that, right? And I'm like, it could be. It could be. We just don't know.
Yes,
We do not know. But of all the things it might be and the things that you can control, is this the one thing you want to believe in?
Yeah.
Now, I'm sensitive to this, right? As a person of color, I'm talking to a person as well. It's like, yeah, there are some gatekeepers that just can't understand people that don't look and sound like them. I get that
Yeah.
part. We need to change that part. But it could it be that your work is actually really good, but you don't know how to interview?
Thank you.
That you
I
have poor
see.
communication skills? That you can't demonstrate empathy? That you don't show leadership skills? It could be. I don't know. But why is it always like it's never me? It's always something else. So people need to get real with themselves.
I so agree with that. It's and I know and I hate the term people of color, for Black, Asians, whatever non-white thing you are, that should not be your go-to for everything. They just hating on me because I'm Black. They just hating on me because I'm this. Hell, even white people are saying they hating on me because I'm white.
Right.
Your color is not an issue. And I hate when people make it an issue. If you had bad customer service, oh, they wouldn't have treated me this like this if I was white, if I was Black, if I was Asian. Really? How about they just have fucking bad customer service because they suck at their job? We always have to add race to it. And it's I hate when people trot out their racial flags, so to speak. And is I seldom put myself out there as this Black woman who does this. Hell, I know I'm Black. Everybody that sees me knows I'm Black. Why do I have to wave that flag saying I'm Black owned? Do I cheer for Black folks? Hell yeah. I would be stupid not to. But to try and tag it on to my personal brand or my business brand does not make sense to me. Because I promise you, if some baby comes to me and say, "Grandma, I need your help," I don't give a rat's ass what nationality you are. I don't give a fuck if you're nerdy, if you're freaky, whatever it is. Can we turn this into a brandable thing? And is this really something that you want to be impactful with? The money's going to come if you have the right message, the right tone, all of those different pieces. But most folks are jumping out here, I want to start a business. You don't know what all goes into being a business, especially being a business of one. Like you said earlier, you got to market, you got to advertise, you got to speak up for yourself. You have all these other things that you have to do that has nothing to do with your gift, talent, and ability. You're good at this design, but you're not good at marketing it. So, baby, it was never about were you good enough or not. It was about how do I sell this? How do I add the value? And I don't see enough of that. You're telling me all this. I did this. I did this. And it's like, okay, but who is that? Who is that helping? All you're trying to make this is about you. Now, when I do personal branding, or now I have to own that shit because people keep telling me I do personal branding, so I'm trying to own it a little bit. But in doing that, it's let's put you first so that you can position yourself to now you can put yourself second. Because now I know I stand 10 toes down in my shit right here so I can best serve you. And I think that's what's missing when people talk about I have imposter syndrome. Sweetie, you're not standing 10 toes down in your shit. You're not saying this is how I stand, this is how I do, this is what I'm great at. I talk about a thing called brand ego. And it's not about the arrogance. It's like you're just stating a fact. You are a great designer. It's just a fact. People have said it. I choose to agree with them. Now, can we move on and see how I can be of service to you? It's not going all on. I don't need a diatribe of how great you are. That does nothing for me when I need the result. And so when they come and they say, you know what, nobody's checking for me. Really? Did you say anything? Did you make it all about you? You should be past the me point when you're going out here and you're trying to be of service. And to have a billion people doing something that they love, sweetie, if you're doing it because of love, the amount of money that you charge, the amount of money you make, you're going to be happy with. I didn't say stay complacent. No, I'm content right here until I raise my price. Y'all better come get this shit while it's at this price, because trust and believe, it's going to go up. Because I tell all my clients, no, we got to raise your prices. This is not enough for what you're bringing, but you have to show the value in the conversation that you have. And the best way to show that value, to market it, open your fucking mouth. That personal brand is the one that convinces most people. And that's what you got to see. Putting it on paper, putting it in a carousel, however, sweetie, can I hear you say something to me? Can I engage with you? When people do lives and all that kind of stuff, like I said, I know how self-conscious I am. And it took me a long time. When I just told you I was a bamboo, all that growing underneath, it took a long time for me to open my mouth. It took a long time for me to own my ghetto country. I owned it within this clump of people that I knew and trusted. But to put it out into the world of people I don't trust, it hits different. So when how do you draw lines for yourself? And you say Chris Doe is not your personal brand. But so how do you draw the lines and the boundaries around this is my personal brand and this is my personal life?
My answer is going to be radically different than your take on this.
Come on.
I'm trying not to live multiple lives. Like, I don't want there to be this fissure that exists between who I am in one space and who I am in a different space. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not different to my wife or to my children or to my parents. Of course I am. I can fall into those roles and be happy fulfilling those roles. For example, when my kids were much younger, I'm not going to talk to them like they're my employee. It's a very different relationship. Conversely too, or not conversely, similarly, I'm not going to talk to my wife the way I would talk to one of my clients. It's just we don't mix those things up, because we have to understand, if we want to connect with people, we need to speak at a level that they can relate to, they can understand with language that is fitting with the situation. However, I'm out there making content. I'm trying to teach people. So when people spot me in the street, they're like, hey, yeah, I think I'm that guy. Yes, okay. And I smile. I might have 2 words with them and maybe a few more words, but I'm okay with all that stuff. I've always wondered this, and this is a challenge. I'm not trying to put myself in the same light here. I just want to be clear about this. When you're young and relatively unknown, anonymous, and you want to make it in Hollywood, which is kind of where I live in LA, you want everyone to look out for you. Like, oh, there goes that person. And you want there to be a mob to show up for you.
Yes.
But at a certain point, you actually achieve that. And then you lost any sense of privacy. And now you feel intruded upon. So there was a time in your life you would have killed for it. And then you get it. And then now your attitude about it changes and it sours. Not every celebrity goes through this. Some celebrities are always grateful and make time for their fans, because they say, and I think they believe this, I am nothing without the fans. You make my life possible. And so we kind of have to be careful. We have to be careful there. So I have that same mindset. I'm here to serve people. So if all of a sudden the church, the cult, gets really big, I can't say, well, who let all these people in? I invited them in. I wanted them to be here. And so with that comes some drawbacks, some loss of privacy, but it's something where, and I challenge people all the time, you want all of this and you're willing to give up none of that. Yes. You want to be successful, but you're not willing to give up your time playing video games.
Yeah.
You want to be seen as a thought leader, but you won't put in the time to read a book or two or to get coaching. You want to be famous, but you want your private. You want all these things. I don't know how to get all those things. So I have made the decision, in order for me to teach more people and to reach more people, I have to give up some of my personal life.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I voluntarily sign up for it, and I'm totally okay. So yeah, sometimes people can bug my wife and I when we're doing something, but I always check in with her, like, okay, this is too much, guys. I got to run. Thanks. Take care. Be well. And I'm out.
You know, and I get that, and I totally agree. And it's it's that from, like I say, for me, I want to make sure that I'm clear, because I promise you I am a workaholic most of the time. I would stop, and anytime somebody came at me, I would start engaging. If I'm with Neil or Morgan, it's like, wait, give me a minute. And I shouldn't have to put my family on hold. And that was something that I did. And it's like, knowing that you have an addictive personality, so you know not to do certain shit. So it's as much for me and them than it is about me trying to push you away. It's just like I tell people, my family is not a prop for my business. Anything that I share with people about my family is because I asked their permission first. Because it is not, this is their life as well. I don't get to just put it on display, because you know what? It makes for good content. So I always ask. And people could say, well, your daughter, she don't get a vote. Yes, she does. Because at some point she's going to leave my house. She's going to have to be an adult. And it's like, your mama used to do this? Yeah. Like I said, I laid my secrets bare years ago. But I want people to know that you get to have a personal life. And this is why I talk about the personal life and the personal brand. Where do you get to have your life? And where do you get to draw the boundaries? Like I say, if Neil's not with me and I feel like falling into GCB mode, so yeah, I'm gonna do that. Come on, sit down. What are we gonna talk about? What are we trying to fix? Because that's the empathic part of me. But if I'm in a mood where I want to be left the fuck alone, if I want to sit here and drink with my husband, if I want to watch a movie with my daughter, please respect that. And it's what you said. I was reading a story. Who is it? Stephen Curry. I think she told a story of some woman crawling in the backseat of their car while she was breastfeeding their child. And the woman said, oh, you should be used to it. Seriously? Another one, Kiki Palmer. She was talking to this person, kept trying to take a selfie with her, and she said no multiple times. But because she didn't want to seem like that bitch movie star or whatever, this person just felt like, you know what, let me take your picture anyway. And she felt like she had to stand there and take it. And it's for me, it's about, like I said, it's respectful rebellion. Let's bring back the respect of it all. Sweetie, I am more than happy to help you. But you know there are times where I just will not. So I totally get you on being accessible. But it's like, how do people know? How do they get to find out? And then, like you said, your wife's like, skirt, pump your brakes. He my husband right now. Y'all got to back up.
You know, I think it's about learning how to speak up for yourself and setting boundaries. So when we feel we're being intruded upon by somebody and it's making us feel uncomfortable, we need to say, I'm feeling uncomfortable. You're intruding on my space and my time right now. I'm sorry, another time we can do this, but not right now. And if they choose not to respect that, that's on them and that's not about you. Right. And if this keeps happening, you might need a security person to follow you around to say, that's enough. That's enough. Respect their wishes. And we also need to be respectful of other people from the fan side to say, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's X, Y, and Z. And I can't approach them. Sometimes you can and sometimes you can't, but you need to be in tune with what's going on. And you need to approach it, I think, in like the spirit of generosity is like, hey, I just want to let you know that I appreciate your writing, your philosophy. It's really helped me. And I just want to testify. That's all.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's important for us. And as creators and influencers and people who manage our own personal brand to hear some feedback, both good and bad, not just all the good stuff. And it's okay. So I just put that out there. And there are people who have literally, Phyllis, I know you could believe this about me, who make a beeline towards me. Like they're the Terminator from Terminator 2 coming for Sarah Connor. And I can see them because there's a crowd and then there's someone walking like on a mission with certain determination walking straight at me. I'm like, this is not going to be good.
Oh my
right? And then they're going to say, Chris, I have a problem with you. I'm like, what's your problem? Well, you did this, isn't it? And I don't like that. I said, okay, what part of that don't you like? And we have a conversation.
goodness.
Now, I'm not trying to convert everybody. I'm trying to understand everybody because
Yeah.
everybody has a point of view. And I respect that your opinion and my opinion can differ, but we don't have to be at odds with each other. We can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. So oftentimes after listening to that person, they have an about face. They're like, I was wrong about you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and they were wrong because they projected their energy onto you. But you have to be able to balance both the good and the bad. Some people cannot handle the bad. Then I say, well, don't start this game, because then you're looking for just some kind of narcissism where only people who love you show up, and
Yeah.
some kind of affirmation that way. You have good and bad.
So when we're talking about personal branding, especially when you talk about it through the lens of branding, I see some people, and this person that I was talking to on Clubhouse, she contradicted me because I was saying at this level, at personal brand, when you're a business of one, sweetie, it's not about the purpose, vision, mission, and values. Yes, it is, and you're just wrong. And she just went all on the. But it's like at this level, as a personal brand, it's about putting some gas in the car, some food on the table, having some impact, and some money in your pocket. It's still personal at this level. And it's not that you should take everything personally, because you're gonna get a whole lot of fucking no's. So it's not about you taking it personally, but understanding that, sweetie, all of this is not for you yet. And I don't have a problem with you having a purpose, vision, and mission. I think is whatever it is. And I think it's great for larger companies, but you're a business of one. Why do you feel that this needs to be a mission? And then once the mission is accomplished, what are you going to do now? Do you know how to level up? Do you know how to move forward? How about we get over here and we do this thing this way? Because, like I say, it's still personal. You just can't take it personally. So when you're talking about a personal brand, do you believe that they should encompass all those things, the purpose, vision, and mission, and closing the gap, and all of that kind of stuff?
Well, I think like with many things, each person has their own approach to it. And I think the world would be boring if we all had the exact same approach. So if
Mm-hmm.
this person came very strongly at you to say, I need to have this and I have it, I'm like, well, good. You're ahead of all of us. Cool. I'm here to help the people who need to like put gas in the car and put food on the table. And one day they'll get there too. And I'm glad that you have that clarity today. Just like how some very young people under the age of 10 can all of a sudden be very clear about their own identity and know who they are. And we might use words like they're an old soul, and
Mm-hmm.
there might be connections to like a previous life, or just for whatever reason they were born a little bit different, faster, and that's okay. Conversely, there could be somebody who's 40 or 50 years old who still is searching for who they are.
Yeah.
So I think we got to throw out this idea that we all operate on some kind of fixed timeline as to when we need to know stuff, how we need to know it, because each person needs to operate differently. Now, the approach that this person took with you in terms of how they approach it at Clubhouse, I think could have approached it differently so that we don't have to enter into a state of being disagreeable from the jump. To say, like, in my life, I've approached it this way and it seems to work for me. I'm curious about your opinion, your take on it. So they're inviting you to have a conversation because they're supposedly keeping an open mind and being curious. This is one of the things I've learned in my life. I'm 51 years old. The more I've learned in my life, the more I realize what I don't know. So the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So I'm a big believer in this idea that you hold strong opinions loosely or weakly. Like today, I come into this conversation with a strong opinion about lots of things,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to hold on to it so strongly that when you present a better, different, more nuanced idea that I can't see it, I don't want to see it, and I reject it. Because that sounds to me like the end of learning, the end of growth, and perhaps the end of life. I
Yeah.
want to keep growing.
And I agree with you, because part of listening and learning from you, I would not have grown had I not listened. But it takes me listening and learning to realize, you know what, now I need to flip the script. And I think a lot of times people get caught up, especially when we're talking about it from a brand perspective. They take in all these tips, tricks, hacks, lessons, and all. Sweetie, you don't know how to flip the script for you. It's like you can't be me, you can't be Chris, you can't be Gary V, but you can take all of those lessons, like, okay, now how do they work for me? I need to toss this out. I need to keep this part. This goes in the trash can of my memories. They won't do that part. They try to hang on to all of it, and you're listening to 20 different voices. So you got 20 different things, and you're confused as fuck. And it's
There's
like,
a solution to that, by the way.
well, give us the solution, Chris. Come on with it.
Let's imagine we'll tell a little story and an analogy, if we will. Okay.
Okay.
Let's just imagine you're in ancient times, and it's a tough place. It's a dangerous place in the world, and you're living in Japan. And there are a variety of different schools of thought in terms of martial arts. There's so many different types. You could, as some stories go, travel from dojo to dojo and learn from different masters, and you would spend 2 days in each, and you would go on. And then you could be a different kind of person. You can just say, you know what? I don't know. The decor looked good. It seemed like their students are doing really well. I just want to study under Master whatever, Z. Okay. I want to study under Master Z. And so you stay there and you spend the next 5 years. So let's now fast forward in time, and we take those two different types of people. One person who is kind of dabbled in learning different ideas from different masters for 2 days, 3 days at a time, traveling around for the next 5 years, versus one person who put in the time, energy, and effort to learn from one master. And then there's a tournament, and they got together. Non-threatening, non-lethal tournament. Who do you think is more likely to win? How you answer this question will tell you a lot about who you are and how you look at the world.
Okay.
My philosophy, what has worked for me, is to tell people it doesn't matter so much that you pick the right master. We don't need to sample every single person to make a determination for ourselves that this is a good teacher for me. Use your best judgment and put your faith in that person. Do as you're told. Learn everything you can. And in some ways, surrender. Give to yourself, or give to your master or your teacher, your influencer, your professor, your coach, and allow yourself to learn, to be moldable, to be like clay. And I think what will happen is you might achieve some level of proficiency. You might even become a black belt in the 5 years. And then now you can go out and you can teach and you can learn from other masters if you want. The problem with people on social media, in the circles in which we seem to bump into folks, they have no patience. They have no focus. They're always looking for the perfect answer.
Yes.
And so they wind up wandering as a masterless samurai or whatever, as a Ronin, and they never find their place. Maybe it works out for them. And I know for some people it will work out, but
yeah, it does.
I think the vast majority is find your master, your professor, your teacher, submit, learn, give a little bit of your ego away and surrender to the process and learn. And you'll grow so much faster, become more confident, more capable in less time. But it requires patience and focus.
You know, I amen to that. That's all I can say. Because it's everyone thinks because we live in kind of an instantaneous society now, everything happens instantly, that you can make money instantly. It's like, sweetie, you could have been doing the same thing, making $500,000 at your job. How you make that $500,000 at work is not going to be the same way you make it in business. First of all, no one knows who you are. And more than likely, everyone that you ever work with is still part of that company. They're still associated with that company. They're not following you. You have no backing now. So to try and capitalize on your corporate experience in a way like that, I don't think is conducive to you growing your business. But now taking whatever you learned and structuring it in a way that fits you, because I'm pretty sure the reason you left corporate crazy was because you wanted to work a certain way. And everybody, I truly believe everyone that wants to be a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, they do it because either I want to determine how much money I make. I want to determine how the job is done. I want to determine something. They want something different. They want some change. But unless you shed, like you said, unless you shed the things that you don't want, then I don't think you're ever going to get it, because you get caught up in like, okay, well, this is how I've always done it. And but the thing is, you said you didn't want that anymore. So how are you stuck in this catch-22? One of my first clients, she told me this is what I want as far as my brand is concerned, because she had written a book. Her other previous books were bestsellers. And this new one, she wanted to be a bestseller, but she wanted to shed the 30-year image that she had built up. And so I gave her what she asked for, but it was not what she wanted. She got caught up in the whole soul sister. Oh yeah, in the she got caught up in all of the blackness of it all. And so what she got was what she asked for, but it wasn't what she wanted. Because she is truly in her work world, she is very mellow. She is very calming. She's very soothing. And to try and bring like how I bring, sweetie, no, that's not you. But I didn't recognize that then. I wasn't as good as I am now, so I didn't recognize it. But and so this is what I'm saying. You have to learn and own the fact that you have something that is uniquely you that you can bring to this personal brand that is going to set you apart. But instead, we look around. It's like, okay, let me find out what they're not doing, sweetie. Even if they're not doing it, and you're not good at what's not being done, it's still a mismatch. Finding the gaps and the openings to fill, and trying to fill it with something that you have no clue about, that's just some is fuckery to me, and it should not be a thing. And that's why I say I cannot work with people who are just chasing money. It's not saying that I can't help them, but I just choose not to because all you're going to focus on is the money. Well, how soon am I going to make my first 100? When am I going to make my first half a mil? If all that is what you're focusing on, then you know what? I don't want to work with you. That's just my own personal preference.
I have an easy answer to that question if someone were to ask me that.
What's your answer?
My answer would be, how soon are you ready to create that value for other people? You can have it as fast as you want, but you got to create that value for others first. It's that simple. Money is a byproduct of service you provide to others, and it's that simple. Look at the equation that way. You're looking at the end of the equation, not the beginning.
So, Chris, what is the biggest hurdle you see for people who are trying to build personal brands or have a personal brand? What do you see as their biggest hurdle?
The biggest hurdle is they don't know who they are. And I think you've spoken about it in 5 different ways on this call already. You don't know who you are. You lived most of your life following the rules of other people. Maybe it's your parents. You're socialized or conditioned a certain way, and you want to be liked. You want to be popular. You're afraid of having your own voice, and so you've been walking on this earth for a long time with no sense of who you are, what you want. I've been talking to my wife because we're developing some new tools, and we've come to some kind of conclusion here. Now, oftentimes when we get into these academic circles, people say, well, there's a difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. I'm like, okay. All right. What's the difference? And they would say something like, and our friend Nidhi, she would say this. She would say, well, self-esteem is about your identity and a sense of worthiness. Am I worthy of this? Am I worthy of being loved? Is it, do I deserve the kind of praise that I'm getting? So self-esteem is how you feel about yourself and your identity. Whereas self-confidence is mostly about a skill. Do I believe I have this skill? So if you can imagine 2 parts of a scale. On the one side is your identity, and the other side is your skill. When they're in balance, we call that confidence. Your skill matches your identity. I'm an award-winning designer director. Well, I have an award, and I think of that myself. So they're in balance. What happens when your skill is very high, but your identity, how you see yourself, is quite low? We would call that imposter syndrome. And there are many famous artists of all stripes, shapes. Meryl Streep is probably one of the most famous, the most nominated Academy actress of all time, still thinks she's boring and that the world's going to wake up one day and realize she has no talent. Wow. So she's out of balance. Okay, what happens when it's the opposite side, where your identity, how you see yourself and how worthy you are is so high, but you actually don't have the skill to match it? What do we call that? We call that delusional. Or as we jokingly refer to it as the yay complex. Okay, for everybody, or the ye or yay. I don't know even how to say it right. Right? Now, it's not all bad. None of these things are bad. It's just a matter of how we work with them. My son, for example, he's like a toothpick. But he goes into the gym every night. He's working and he's eating his protein powder. And he's like, Dad, look at these muscles. And I'm like, what muscles? He's like, oh, man, I'm going to tear through this. So he suffers from a little delusion himself. But I take full responsibility for that because I put those seeds in his brain a long time ago. I've
Yeah.
trained my boy to be very resilient, to ignore the external markers to build his identity first. The
Yes.
reason why I say none of these things are bad is because they all have a solution. Let's go back over it again. There's only one version of this I haven't told you where it's bad. And I'll tell you
Okay.
that in a second. Okay. That's a
Okay.
teaser. All right.
Okay.
So when your
Tease, baby,
skill,
tease.
yeah. When your skill and your identity are in alignment, right? Where objectively we can say, like, you're an award winning blah and you do this. Okay, great. You're confident. Just keep going down that path. The
Mm-hmm.
solution for you is to continue to stack more skill to build your identity, to change your identity and stack more skill. So they're relatively in balance with each other. And you'll see these people, they're not that common, but you'll see that there's a peace about them. They don't need to go and tell anybody how good they are. They don't need to show you how good they are. They're just good and they're very attractive. They draw people to them. I like to think of like the Dalai Lama, shamans, the gurus of the world. They tend to just draw people because they're very much at peace.
Mm-hmm.
The people, let's go back to Meryl Streep, who have tremendous skill but low identity, through some mindset resets, belief system changes, some help from a therapist, they can start to be a little bit more objective as to how they look at themselves versus how subjectively they're talking to themselves. Through therapy, through coaching, they can level that out. The good news for them is it doesn't even matter so much that their identity is so low, because the world will continue to reward them because their skill is so high. They'll get the best parts, they'll
Yes.
get the best opportunities, and they'll be paid the most amount of money because their skill is irrefutable. So even if they never change, it'll still be okay.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are super delusional, who have tremendous sense of self and worthiness, whose skill isn't there, we would call them like the manifestors of the world. They're the visionaries. They see something that has yet to materialize. Elon Musk saw electric cars everywhere and him dominating the industry before it was even a viable idea. He saw humans as what is that called? Intercontinental or interplanetary species. Before we can say, like, we can go to Mars and do terraforming, and he can see things and he manifests it into reality. The solution there is just to put in the work to acquire the skills or to invent the solutions that have yet to materialize. You're going to be the great manifestors. Kanye or Ye says, I'm going to be the greatest artist of all time, not just of hip hop, but of all time. And perhaps you'll get there. It'll be interesting to see. We'll see. But from the outside, they look like the crazies. But from the inside, they're so clear with their vision and they're so clear with who they are that they will manifest it into reality. Not all people, but from the public, we see them as the mad geniuses, the tinkerers, the eccentric, esoteric types. So now we kind of see the three different types. There's one type that is actually not good at all. And that type is this, where they have a low sense of self and they create an artificial and inflated version of their skill. We'll call these all these internet marketers who talk about all the things they've done. They knowingly are misleading the public and they know it themselves that they're lying. They're not the manifestors. They're not the delusional type because they know it's a scam and yet they tell you it's not a scam. We call
Mm-hmm.
those hucksters, snake oil salesmen, the fraudsters of the world. And that's the most dangerous type. And you have to be careful about giving those people your money. So those are like the general like four types. So why did I go on this little tirade here? It all begins with identity. Who are you? What makes you unique and special and different? What makes you one of one? Because the world's a noisy place. And what we're trying to do is help people not only find themselves, but then to communicate their value to others. And when you can do that, you're rewarded financially for it and you get to help people. What a wonderful combination.
I love it. I love it. And it speaks so much to like people who are younger than me that know me. They kind of make fun of me because I tell them you got to be this old to ride this ride. I have a preference of people, a age preference of people I want to work with. It's not saying I won't work with anyone younger. It's a preference. Just like I used to like pretty boys back in the day. My husband is cute, but he's not like the pretty boys I used to mess around with. So having a preference when you're talking to, and I think I'm saying this because a lot of people get stuck on this thing, who's my niche, what's my niche. Sweetie, it's not saying that you can't work with other things or outside of that niche. It's just saying that, you know what, I'm using this to market this one great thing that I do consistently well. And it's the easiest thing for me to do to get paid. And that's what this niche is all about. But once you get them on the phone or once you perform that service, it's like, oh, well, I also need this. Oh, I got you. You can bring all the other stuff. You just don't have to put it all on Front Street. And that's why, like I say, when I see people out here and they have all the hyphens, and I think someone I just heard, and I love her, Ebony, I love you, baby. But hearing her use the word intersectional and all these different, yes, we all cross all these paths. But baby, there's something that you do well that you need to get paid for in order to make that splash that you want to make. Having all the hyphens is not going to do that for you. It's no different than when I had a restaurant. The longer we had our restaurant, the shorter the menu got. And so it was, there was a thing where after a while people knew what to order off the menu. It wasn't a big long off the menu extensive thing, but it's like, this is what we bringing. We got 4 meats, you can get them 4 different ways, that's it. But then we had our special people. I'm coming into town, can you make me this thing? We had a item on our menu called bay palm, big ass pile of meat, and that came from our farmers market days, because it would be the end of the day. People will actually wait for the end of the day till we were almost out, and they's like, just make me a big ass pile of meat. So they would get some of this, some of this, some of this, and so it became a thing. But then once we put it on the menu as a regular thing, now we had to try and structure it, because it's like, okay, we can't give them like it's not an end of the day thing. We have all of this stuff. So now it had this whole vibe of, it's a pound of this, 2 pounds of that, and so forth, versus like, let me scrape the bins and get you your shit so you can go. And so when you're putting all of these things out here, when you're telling me that you have all this fabulousness, when you have all this brilliance, all I want to know is, can you do the fucking job that I pay you for? That's it. And we get so caught up in thinking that we're going to miss $1 if we don't have all these things. You got 10 things that you charge $1 for. How about have one thing and charge $10 for it? And then still get paid more money for all the other 9 things you still got. But we're afraid that, you know what? Somebody else is going to take my money. Sweetie, the thing that I've realized, and like I say, listening to you over the years and so forth, is that the reason I can own my ghetto country so well now is because being this voice this way, it makes room for other people to realize that, you know what? She got some fucked up English, and she got this. She speaks bad English and all the things. But sweetheart, my clients aren't like me. And it surprises me. Your intellect, I guess I'm intellectual, but I don't bring that to this game. I love to read. I love to learn. I'm always trying to learn something new. I'm taking another brand strategy class, and it's not that I need it, it's that I want it. Because I still want to understand my field. I still listen to you. I'm going on my 2nd year of being in the Future Pro because I still want to learn from you. Okay, do I agree or disagree? I still want to hear it because I love to learn. And you read so many books that I'll probably never touch. And it's like, okay, let me get the cliff notes from Chris. And then I decide if I actually want to go read the book myself. But there's all these different things and all these different nuances of ourselves that we think we need to put on display as a personal brand that are not necessary. And it's with the understanding, like with you, I've noticed like in your LinkedIn, you started talking about typography. And I know at your heart, at your core, you're a designer, but you also understand business. You now understand brand strategy. But dude, I can always go back to design and I will blow your socks off. But that's not what you push. I'm pushing that I want to teach 1 billion people how to make money doing what they love. And it's still you. It doesn't take anything away from you being that designer, from you having your Emmy, from you winning all these other awards. But that's not what you put on Front Street. I'm a loud introvert on a mission to do this thing. And that's all. But we behind the scenes in the Future Pro, we get to see all this extra, all this other stuff that you learned. And we both have knowledge of how to do a business. I learned mine from running a restaurant. You learned yours from doing blind. And so I think people see what they want to see. And I know this is true. Perception is a bitch. It just is what it is. But you still get to own. You get to own the parts that you want to share. I tell people now, fuck what Jeff Bezos says about, you know what, your brand is what people say when you're not in the room. I'm in the fucking room. I can speak for myself. How about that? And I love that you do that on a consistent basis. I love that you're talking about personal branding, and people need to get out of their own way. People need to understand it's like, okay, yes, I'm learning from you, but I don't have to be you. Let that part go. Oh, I want to be like so and so. One of my Sean just talked to you. Sean tells everybody he wants to be the Amazon of barbecue. He wants to be. It's still in his realm of doability, but it ain't gonna be named Amazon. It's not starting out with books. There's a whole different vibe and a dynamic to that. So I like I said, I watch you and I watch the Future Pro, and seeing so many people come and go, they don't want to relinquish their fears. That's what I see a lot of times when we're on the call, because they want you to spoon feed them. They ask you question after question. They want to be spoon fed instead of just owning that, you know what, let me go out here and try it. If I fuck up, I fuck up. If I don't, at least I learn. And they won't take that. And that's the only way I think you're going to become self aware. So, oh, Chris, I could talk to you all day. I really could. Go ahead.
Is it time to land the plane?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You wanna land it?
Come on with it. What's the last piece of advice you would have for someone who's trying to develop a personal brand?
I'm going to make some assumptions. The first assumption is you have skill, that you've spent enough time learning, practicing, and being able to give your gift to someone where they will gladly give you money back. So before you start developing your personal brand, just make sure you have some kind of skill. And it's good to have this as the base layer to a multi-story home that you're building. This is your foundation, your bedrock, if you will. This is going to be an unshakable truth about yourself. So we all have our own journey in life. I went to a traditional graphic design school, got my 4-year degree, practiced it for a while, learned from the masters, and felt very confident in the design typography space. So that will always be my fallback foundation. The house has many layers to it now, as you've mentioned. And so start there. Once you have that, if you have a demonstrable skill that people will gladly give money for you to help them, we can now start to move into the next level. So you do your skill, you create a service that's highly bespoke, and you do this for 3 to 5 years so that you have ample receipts or proof that you can do this. And now you have to sit back and say, okay, of all the thousands or hundreds of thousands of people who do the exact same thing that I do, how can I start to differentiate myself from that pack? We have to look into our past. We have to look into our interests, our hobbies, our origin story, the transformative moment. We start to tell those stories because after all, people don't just buy what you do anymore. They buy into the why. They buy into the how. They buy into your personal style and your delivery. So somebody's going to listen to this and say, I really resonate with Phyllis. She's my go-to Brandma. Or somebody's like, I love that nerdy technical brain of Chris, and I'm going to go with him. And we can help you both, for sure, confidently help you achieve your goals. So you have to lean into who you are versus trying to be like someone else. Yes. I would fail pretty spectacularly if I tried to tell people I'm ghetto country Brandpa. It just wouldn't work because I'm not. I can't own it. And people are going to peel it back really quickly and say, oh, that's just a gimmick that you're using. That's you're being fraudulent. That's the one type of personality that I told you about before, where you're pretending to be something that you're not. And it's super dangerous. It's a house of cards. It's going to fall over. Somebody just has to pull at one string and it'll just unravel. So get your skill together, practice this for a number of years, and then start to have the conversation with yourself. Who am I? What do I stand for? What makes me different? And how did the city that I grew up in, how was I raised in my birth order? How does that affect the lens in which I look at the world, and start to lean into that, to embrace that as all of you and not to push that aside? That would be my takeaway tip.
You know, and I can get behind that. And the only level I would actually add to that, like I said, when I talk about the two-word brand, it is to make sure that when you're starting out, I don't believe everyone has, like, I don't plan on holding on to Ghetto Country Grandmother forever. It is what I need to get through this right now. Is like, even if you know Beyonce's story about being Sasha Fierce, We all need something to like, you know what? I got good shit over here. I got to find a way to talk about it. And while I'm very comfortable in being Phyllis now, more comfortable than I was before, but the thing about it is, as a ghetto country grandmother, I set certain standards. Because, like I tell people, I am selfish, I'm petty, I'm all these things. But these are not part of my brand. It's part of my life over here, but it's part of my brand. And so, if you can find a way to tie a moniker that is aligned with the business that you're trying to scale, now, if you plan to stay a business of one, you can keep your personal brand going all up and through. But if there's something that you want to scale, then, sweetie, you got to try and find a way to let that personal brand endorse that business. You can't keep pitching because your pitch is dry and tired, and it's something that you've been practicing. So it sounds like you're reading it anyway. But I believe that Chris can endorse the Future Pro all up and through without ever saying, you know what, go sign up for this thing. Now that doesn't mean that he does not market the Future Pro, because he sends out emails, he tells you guys when signups or whatever are happening. So that's not saying that it's not marketed. But when you're talking to Chris, he doesn't come out of pocket. Oh, let me tell you about the Future Pro Group. That's not what he walks around with in his everyday. And it's no different from me. I can tell you about Brandma's house. Brandma's house is going to scale in a certain way that it licenses out a certain thing. It is not going to be just me. And I know how I want to grow and scale that. But I do not pitch it. I don't have a pitch for Brandma's house. I know I can tell you what Phyllis does, but Phyllis is going to tell you to go to the house and get your work, because I don't want all that weight on me. Chris has a team. Ben and Stephanie and Andres, I love all of them. Oh, they're my babies. But they have their skill that they bring to the future, not to Chris. And so you have to recognize that, you know what, as I play this game, at some point I probably shed the ghetto country grandmother. But right now, she is where I stand 10 toes down. She's my version of Sasha Fierce. Because people listen to that because it's like, ooh, somebody saying ghetto country. I want to see. If I say Phyllis Williams Straughter, oh, that's nothing. I will be dismissed more quickly going by Phyllis Williams Straughter than I ever would being the ghetto country grandmother. And I have had so many people reach out to me on LinkedIn that people would never think. Older white dudes that suited and booted, that I love your authenticity. And when I say being the ghetto country grandmother, yes, this is still a part of Phyllis. It's just a limited part of Phyllis, because you guys don't need to know all my crazy. And the same goes for anybody who's out here. If you want to grow and scale, if you know that you want to be more than a business one, recognize, are you trying to increase revenue or are you trying to scale your business? Because two different things. Raising your prices and then expanding your reach, two different things. So understand that when you step into this whole personal branding thing, it's not just that. So, Chris, anything coming up for the future that we need to know about? So I
I'd
know you
love
got
for,
to run around.
yeah, there's a whole bunch of things going on. So I want to see people in person. We've been 3 years apart and you lose something. And so look out for announcements about free and paid events and workshops in the United States and Europe. In April, I'm heading over to Europe doing a 7-city tour, 10 workshops. It's going to be super crazy cool. There's some secret surprises that we're going to unleash on everybody there. And you don't even have to pay for some of them. So it's cool. I like to make money, but I want to serve people first. And so I start there, I serve. And if people want to go deeper with me in the community or a workshop, I'd love to see you there.
There you go. And I have a master class coming up because I do want you guys to get your 2-word brand. Whether you use it as a descriptor or you use it as a moniker, either one, get your 2-word brand, especially if you're trying to be louder in the industry that you're in. I will put a link in the description and all that good stuff. But until then, y'all know I got to count you down. 5, bullshit happens, so suck it up. 4, your voice is important, so speak up. 3, you make the world a more beautiful place, so show up. 2, life is good, so buck up. And 1, I love you and ain't a damn thing you can do about it, so shut the fuck up. Peace and hair grease, y'all. I'm out.
Love that outro.